When Geelong hosted the Western Bulldogs in round 19 at GMHBA Stadium, we saw something that is rare at the AFL level. The condition of the oval itself was pretty poor, and after the game led to a couple of the Bulldog players in Ed Richards and Jamari Ugle-Hagan criticising it. Post-game, Ugle-Hagan said it was like running out in a paddock with how muddy it was, and Richards right after the final siren said, "I wouldn't have thought an AFL ground would be like this, but it happens I guess." To be fair, there wasn't much anyone could do. It was raining for most of the day, and the big killer was the VFL game played as a curtain raiser. That match ended up as a 57-57 draw, and in total had over 170 tackles laid. That 2-hour-long slogfest did some serious damage to the ground, and it's something we don't see AFL players regularly have to deal with. Although a couple of the Dogs players raised concerns, it didn't seem to affect their play as they ran out as the winners. But this wasn't the first time in 2024 that weather has been an issue. All the way back in round 3, the Easter Monday game between Geelong and Hawthorn had to have play be postponed. In a wild day of football, it was Geelong who had a comfortable 36-point lead at three-quarter time. All was going well for their star in Tom Hawkins, who was playing in his 350th game on his way to kicking 4 goals. But as the siren sounded for the start of the last quarter, the rain began falling heavily. Then this happened. The umpires, in communication with each other with their mics turned up, said there was lightning in the proximity of the stadium, so play had to be called off. The 67,000 people at the MCG and those watching at home had to wait 40 minutes for a restart of play. During the long intermission, this was also caught on camera.
A quirky moment for Hawkins during the lightning delay. He was spotted with a phone, which is usually banned mid-game. The AFL says they will look into the incident, which can carry a $20,000 fine. The Cats confident, though, it is within the rules because it was one of the 10 staff member phones each club is allowed, and they were simply looking at the radar. 4 goals for the milestone.
In 2021, Jeremy Howe and Jordan De Goey were caught on their phones, and the club was sanctioned a $20,000 fine. However, in this case, the milestone man in Hawkins explained a staff member handed him a phone so he could look at the radar. Geelong were let off with a warning. Now these type of delays can be awkward to navigate, and it was for the Cats. Out of nowhere, Hawthorn got within 20 points with 11 minutes of game time left and threatened to spoil Hawkins' 350th. But Geelong settled, and back-to-back goals secured an important win on a strange day of weather. Now over the round 19 weekend, many of the games were played in wet and slippery conditions. Hawthorn and Port Adelaide were also both able to adapt in the conditions better than their opponent to pick up wins. But the weather in their games looks like nothing compared to one famous 1993 matchup. In a round 11 game between St Kilda and the Brisbane Bears, the conditions changed in an instant. The game at Waverley Park was chilly, with the temperature roughly around 10 degrees, with reports of thunder and hailstones in the local areas. But the game started off fine with okay conditions. It then began to rain lightly throughout the first and second quarters. Then out of nowhere, this happened.
Coach of Mark Westgard, incidentally, are the umpires. Oh, it is really starting to bucket across now. In fact, it's
coming
sleeting
in
rain.
Sheets, isn't it? Sheets of rain.
It's like working with someone from the Bureau, Don. Still on half forward for the Bears. Scott tries to soccer off the ground. Nathan Burke at the bottom of the pack.
There's hailstones too.
Well,
we've got everything we've
we're
had.
going to have snow here any minute.
Well, we could.
Gee, this is making it tough. It looks all right, perhaps on your monitor, but take it from me, this is wild woolly. Look at those hailstones. Did I get reported for striking? Well, the drought has broken.
Paul Pios took a great mark in the conditions and had to have the set shot barely being able to see and with the hail bouncing off his head.
Look, exaggerating. I don't think we're all that far from snow, you know.
Well, it's the They're not disintegrating when they hit the ground. As Pios goes for goal, what has he done?
I think he's kicked it. He has.
Well, the umpire is under a lot of duress.
Overall, the hailstorm lasted about 5 minutes of game time and the conditions went back to normal. The weather didn't help the Bears, who are used to a bit more sunshine, and St Kilda ended up winning 130 to 75. In 2019, we saw something for the first time and haven't seen it since. In a round 21 game where GWS hosted Hawthorn in Canberra, it began snowing. Everyone knew it was going to be cold coming into the game, and each of the club's attitudes would be important. A video earlier in the week showed Alistair Clarkson taking off his shirt and running out on the field when the Hawks were training. It got a fair few laughs from the players, but in hindsight was a fantastic coaching move. Clarkson himself set the tone and showed his players they should enjoy the cold weather and embrace it. So when the snow started coming down just before quarter time, the reactions of the Giants and Hawks players were different.
It's believed to be the first time an AFL game has been played in the snow. Some brave fans even wore goggles to the game. Temperatures dipped to 2 degrees at the Oval, but it felt more like -7 with the wind chill.
While some of the GWS players were shaking and most likely dreading playing, the looks on the Hawthorn players were the opposite. They got Clarko's message and enjoyed the unbelievably rare weather conditions. The longer the game went on, the more dominant Hawthorn were. They kept GWS to just 29 points for the entire game, while scoring 85 of their own in a fantastic win set up early in the week. It showed how mental the game of football is and the effects weather can have on certain players. Perhaps the best weather moment involved North Melbourne forward Drew Petrie. All the way back in round 13, 2003, Subiaco Oval was far more mud-filled and soggy than GMHBA Stadium was. The players throughout the game had dealt with the oval fine, but there were heavy patches full of mud. It just happened when Petrie went to dive for a ball, he went right into the worst possible patch on the field.
On song, the West Coast Eagles here. And half forward, the Kangaroos. Look at that mud go everywhere. Well,
there's one for the highlights reel.
Where is that? Petrie. We'll try and identify him. His mother wouldn't know him at the moment. Ball goes to ground. Player over it is Shannon Grant. He's been pinged for holding the football.
Someone get Drew Petrie a mobile phone so he can ring his family and tell him he's all right.
Well, the towel has come out to Drew Petrie. And they are scenes you very rarely see here in the West. In fact, anywhere in the AFL nowadays. Mud splattered everywhere.
The then 20-year-old young key forward made it through the rest of the game okay, gathering 14 disposals in North Melbourne's 9-point loss.